What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. And before the Jets were linked to Mendoza, all of the recent reports, all of the projections with Mendoza coming out in the 2026 draft, and the Jets being heavily connected, the visits in person with Darren Mougey and a lot of the brain trust to go and scout this player, there may have been a love for a different quarterback, and I think Darren Mougey and Aaron Glenn may be playing their hands smart here, or maybe the media just hasn't caught on and made as big of a fuss as I would generally expect leading into the offseason, and definitely, you know, the hype building for potential top 10 draft teams potentially picking in the top 10, but one of the things that's really flown under the radar, and of course with the Jets having a need, I'd love to be all over and on top of this news, but there was much noise made about Darren Mougey, and again, having Phil Savage, having Robbie Patton, his right-hand man, having a lot of his top scout, etc., director, having a lot of these guys show up to see Fernando Mendoza and to be able to scout him over the course of multiple games this year, right? And it's definitely doing due diligence. Every team, whether you're picking 1 or 32, is going to try to do the same thing unless you just feel like you have an established quarterback that you can win with. But this isn't the only quarterback that we've actually shown up for in person. Darren Mougey has made at least 2 trips to go and personally scout Dante Moore as well. Penn State versus Oregon and Oregon versus Rutgers were the 2 games that he showed up for. And the story behind Dante Moore this season is that he's just this clean-cut, pristine prospect when you want to talk about all the off-field stuff. On field, he's taken his time to really be able to hold the clipboard, if you will, when he was sitting behind Dillian Gabriel, right? And he's talked about all of the highlights of how that really helped out his game, preparation, mindset, being able to see a starter's workload and how they go about their business, right? Then you take a look at what he's been able to do this season. We also can't forget he's had a handful of starts when he was a freshman at UCLA, I believe. But you fast forward to this 2025 season, and he's been killing it. He's clearly been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in all of college football, just punched his ticket in most likely to the college football playoffs. And really the only questions around him is, will he actually come out in this draft? Is there anything that could push him to want to come out, right? There's a lot of different narratives, a lot of different storylines out here, but there's a couple main components, and this is one of the more unclear prospects, right? Just in terms of, does it make more sense for him to come out, or does it make more sense for him to stay, try to continue to develop, cement himself as a potential top quarterback? From an NFL standpoint, and from any team that needs a quarterback, right? You look at this draft class, you say people love Mendoza, but he's really only the clear number 1 because of how many prospects people think to go back to school, right? You think Dante Moore, you think Lenore Sellers, you think Garrett Nussmeier, right? A lot of these guys that would have been projected to potentially still be in the first round, but due to a bit of a fall off, due to injury, whatever the case is, it makes more sense for a lot of these guys to go back to school when you're talking about, yes, they may still be first-round quarterbacks, but also they may not be making the top 10 money, right? You might see a class where Fernando Mendoza goes number 1, and then you don't see another quarterback come off till, you know, the 14th pick. Another one not come off until pick 18 to 20. Another one maybe not come off until the 30th overall pick, right? And so in that world, you can make the argument that NIL deals and all that kind of stuff, it's more feasible for the guy to go back, try to boost his draft stock and see what he can do there, right? And Dante Moore definitely fits within that bucket. We can't forget a couple of things here. From a media standpoint, a lot of the coverage is that if he were to come out, he would be rated even higher than Mendoza, right? The second piece is that he's also extremely youthful, right? You're talking 20 years old. You're talking about a quarterback that has, I want to say, under 17, maybe even under 15 starts as a whole up until this point in his career. And so he's not going to check the box for a lot of those teams or a lot of those guys that are coming from like the Bills Parcells tree or anything that's similar enough where you want a guy that had, 20, 30 starts. But we also have to be realistic that you're not just going to get that in this day and age, right? So there's a few factors that could sway one way or the other. And the moment that he announces that he would take off to the league, for example, you're going to see things kick in a hyperdrive, I would imagine, when it comes to Darren Mougey and the scouting team really drilling in and deciding, is this going to be the guy that's worthy of going to number one? And just at face value, it is what it is, right? I would love for us to have another Geno Smith type guy at the quarterback helm. You take that for what it is, but everything that I've seen about Dante Moore, and I haven't invested anything close to even a penny towards scouting most of these guys outside of highlights that come out in the rare article that I might come across as I'm getting ready to prep some of this content. But Dante Moore seems like a guy I could really get excited about. I can really throw full support behind. He's bringing immense youth. He's bringing a level of calmness, a level of control, a level of field general like mindset when it comes to just going out there and operating at a high level. Does that mean that he's walking off the field every week throwing 4 or 5 touchdowns a game? No, but it looks like going 27 of 30, just shy of 300 yards, a touchdown in a huge rivalry game in the recent week, right? That punches his ticket in, again, most likely to the college football playoffs for him to try to chase a national championship. So everything that I've known about this guy so far, beautiful to love. Let's talk about some of the things that could sway his decision one way or the other. His offensive coordinator recently announced he will be leaving Oregon to take the Kentucky head coach job. Offensive coordinator Will Stein won't be there in 2026 for him. Obviously, I feel like there's a close connection between head coach Dan Lanning and Dante Moore here as well. But there's nothing it's the most intimate relationships in an entire football operation, generally speaking, are going to be either the head coach if they're offensive minded and the quarterback, the OC and the quarterback, and or the quarterback coach and the quarterback, right? And you kind of figure out who he bonds to more often. Generally, that also tends to be the guy that's, shooting up the list of coaches for everybody to know as well, right? Quarterback whisperers, if you want to talk about quarterback coaches, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot that you can get into, but there seems to have really been a family atmosphere that was fostered at Oregon. Dante Moore's family's bought in, right? You talk about everything that Dan Lanning has been committed to doing to help develop Dante Moore. And you can imagine that a prospect will want to stay in that kind of atmosphere, right? If you're a number one ranked guy in this draft, at least in terms of being a quarterback, it could stand to bargain or reason that, especially in a deeper class next year, you may not be that same guy. But if you feel like your trajectory can continue upwards around however they build, that's a huge plus. I think a big piece of this as well with Dan will be, will he promote from inside or will he bring an external hire? And if so, if you're talking about completely changing his system and how you want Dante Moore to operate, all of those different things, that could be a bit scary for a guy that wanted to have some kind of consistency. So it would make more sense to promote within and use that as your selling point if you're talking to Dante Moore and kind of gauge his interest of leaving. The secondary piece, there's a lot of scouts, and they've been saying this for a while, that they're confident Dante Moore is returning to Oregon for a lot of the stuff that I just mentioned. But I also recall seeing a recent article that was talking about how not only is it scouts, not only is it executives that are tapping in and, kind of trying to get whatever nuggets they can about these potential prospects. The family apparently, has a strong feeling about him staying in Eugene, continuing his development, of course, working through the school, all that kind of stuff. And so And it seems like, at least from what's being put out there, that Dante Moore also would prefer to stay, develop, get a little bit more seasoned, and of course everything else that comes with that when it comes to school. And this leads in kind of into the third point as well. He recently had a ton of NIL deal announcements that went down as well. Definitely could end up, I don't know how the whole NIL landscape works, right? But I would imagine he can definitely forego all of that and end up jumping to the NFL. He's going to make a ton more money than any NIL deals that he has right now in place anyways, assuming he walks away at the very worst a top 5 prospect in the 2026 draft. But again, not everybody's sold on money as much as we like to believe that, right? And at least with these guys being able to make the money in college, it helps things out. We're not feeling like you need to rush these kind of decisions. And Dante Moore is not going to be hurting for money, right? I don't like pocket checking or pocket watching anybody else. But the numbers that I did see were that he's currently within the top 10 of all players in collegiate I guess history, if you want to call it that, but in college, in terms of the NIL valuations that he has, right? And I think the number I saw was like 2.1 million or something like that, right? So, of course, walking to the NFL, that would be chump change. But for a college guy, not even old enough to drink yet, life-changing money already just going into college. So, what does this mean for Dante Moore? Could he come out? Could he not? One of the things, going back into the Jet side of things here, that I really, really like is, again, a lot of this is flown under the radar, right? If it didn't come up again when I was doing my 2-round mock draft live stream from one of my guys, and he happened to show me the tweet of someone at least pointing out one of the games, and I was able to do some research and find the other one that we showed up for. I don't know if we would have caught on to this until he potentially made an announcement, and then we started seeing guys really lock in and being able to get some of this information. But Darren Mougey and, again, Aaron Glenn, they're playing their hand that, yes, there's strong interest. It's going to be sold as we're doing our due diligence, whether it's guys that are coming out this year or next year. I recall a different article seeing that Darren Mougey specifically was requesting some of these 27 first-round picks because he understands what that draft class is projected to be at the quarterback position. We've talked not ad nauseum, but obviously there's been a ton of focus around how are we going to build this team in 2026. You need to get a quarterback in some shape, form, or fashion, but are you going to go the rookie route? And does that dissuade you from trying to pick up another guy in 2027? All going to definitely be ongoing conversations here, right? But it's key that they're not overplaying their hand and that there's just this immense love, this immense affinity. This is, fate-built relationship. And so what I mean by that is, let's say he does decide he's going to wait. He'll be in the 2027 draft class. When we do get to 2027, and inevitably we probably still need or feel like we need a quarterback, and we tag him to be the guy that we've been researching the longest, that we've had a growing love for, that this is the guy that we're going to go through hell and hot water to try to get. Teams are also storing away all this information. So they're going to go back and say, in 2026, we feel like this was the guy at the top of their draft board until they had to take him off. Let's squeeze them for everything that we can, knowing that these guys are going to do just about anything to get this deal done. And so you don't want that kind of situation either, right? Obviously, some guys are going to be able to glean this information anyways, or some guys are going to be able to handle the pressure or the leverage situations better or worse. But it seems like Trader Darren has done pretty good when it comes to his returns, when it comes to how he's evaluated some of these throw-in picks for us that we've really seen show some strong glimpses for us, right? A team where they finally got some opportunities, and at least for what we're dealing with the Tyrod Justin Fields situation, we've been able to pull it out. Even on defense, when you want to talk about the Steve Wilkes situation, we've been able to pull out some pluses there. So let me know what you guys think, though. I would tell you this right now, and this could change again once I really start doing a ton of research on these quarterbacks, but Dante Moore would be the guy that would be at my number one position right now. And I wouldn't trade anything more than maybe one 2027 first round pick if he came to it. But I would 100% look to package a pretty decent amount of picks to go up and make him the new face of our franchise, the quarterback of the future, hopefully the savior. I think that highly of him again, just from the small amounts I've been seeing. But let me know what you guys think. I catch you guys again. Peace.